it was 2 months ago, something like that. We were, at least I was not certain on doing it on threats or on risks. It felt a bit like a political stance to take. It felt almost like I'm a doomsday proclaimer, you know, like we're all gonna die and this is all gonna happen and it's because of the news and it's so certain, although I don't have any arguments to prove it. The funny thing is, in the last 2 months, almost on a daily basis, we have had pieces of news, reports, studies, papers that have confidently driven me to make this talk today. And hopefully, as you will see, some things are really a bit of a mess. I just kept putting ideas into the presentation, so hopefully the end result is all right. But otherwise, I apologize for the mess. So existential threats of AI. As I said, this particular talk is saying that there are existential threats of AI. So before we begin with going through the index of what I will talk about, just very quickly say that existential threats are those that pose a risk to humanity and its existence. So this means either extinction or a similar sort of risk, which, for instance, just having a few humans on Earth to me counts as extinction almost, especially with some AIs running around. So, as the index of the talk, first we're going to go through definitions. We're going to talk about what artificial intelligence is, what artificial general intelligence is, and what a superintelligence is as well. We're also going to talk about the singularity. The singularity is the event of when an artificial intelligence that can improve itself does it in such a way that it grows exponentially fast in terms of its capabilities. Essentially, you go to sleep with an AI that is maybe smarter than you, and you wake up to a galaxy-dominating entity because it's just so smart that it can just do it, right? The speed at which this would happen, of course, is a subject of debate, but we will talk about that maybe in the discussion. So then, second topic is we're going to talk about an already unaligned or misaligned general intelligence, which is also beyond human in terms of intelligence. This unaligned general intelligence to me is corporations. And I say corporations not only referring to companies, I could also refer to any sort of group that together have an objective that not necessarily may align with some values that may be interesting to humanity. This, of course, is a very debatable topic, so I am warning you now that there's things that I consider opinions. Some things. I believe it and I will try to reason it, but this is something that, of course, we are here to discuss, so take into account. Then the last thing that we will talk about is the race, as I name it, and it's one of the things that really pushes me the most to make this talk, and it's how we are handling the topic of AI. And the way we are handling it is just racing towards it with no brakes, just deep dive into it. So, let's start. So with the definitions, mainly artificial intelligence is a field of computer science. It also can be understood as a field of, as a part of other fields like biology, psychology, neuroscience. But it mainly started in computer science. And then its focus is really to use intelligent properties in digital and virtual agents to complete tasks that require these that we define as intelligence. So an example, it doesn't necessarily have to be a human task like recognizing speech. It can also be some animal behavior like hunting and seeking prey in a virtual domain. Then I wanted to just for the purpose of demonstration, I'm sure you're very familiar already with ChatGPT, but since I said I had a bit of a trouble preparing this presentation, so I may need a little bit of help with AI. So here I have the definitions of all of the topics. You don't need to read them necessarily now, because what I will do now is just say, define the previous points in 10 words or less. And this is what we will go through. Okay, I was very fast. So AI, computer systems mimicking human intelligence. As I said before, it can also be non-human intelligence. But then narrow AI is task-specific AI. So this is the typical deep learning AIs that we have seen before. An AI that plays chess is a type of narrow AI. It can only play chess. You bring it out of that, doesn't know what you're talking about or what doesn't even know what to say. Then we have artificial general intelligence. So then we have an artificial intelligence that can learn data, and it can apply it to a variety of problems. And a good example of this is an AI that came up a couple of years ago that had surprise, or had curiosity. So it was going through a maze, and whenever it found something new, something that it didn't have in its data set, it gave importance to that. So with that sort of paradigm, with that sort of architecture, you could just have that AI playing, for instance, Pong, and it played Pong automatically. It just did random things, but suddenly things happened. Okay, like if the ball went through the goal, suddenly a number in the screen changed. It meant that a goal was scored, right? So that had some meaning. And the AI started associating new things with new behaviors, and it was actively seeking new behaviors through this curiosity. So this is a type of artificial general intelligence. Of course, maybe not the typical that we hear, that it can really be applied to all of the problems that humans can do. So usually when we hear artificial general intelligence, it is referred to this bigger, this stronger type of AI that can do everything that a human can do. But really, generality can sometimes come at a smaller scale where you can just do something in a variety of problems, not maybe in all of them. And finally, the last definition is the artificial superintelligence. Very quickly, it's just a general intelligence that can do anything that humans do and better. That's a superintelligence. So here we start getting into the funny part of it, right? Which is when if an artificial intelligence can really do everything that a human can do, it can of course program artificial intelligence. So it can improve what an artificial intelligence does. Okay, so here we start seeing the hints of how a singularity can happen. You just have an AI that improves itself, and we know the rest of the story. So let's go through now a logical proposition of how we can have super intelligence that, with the last conclusion number 3, can pose an existential threat to humanity. Sorry. So AIs have terminal goals. That is a goal that, for instance, an AI that plays chess, the terminal goal is very simple. You need to win the game of chess. If you have an AI that, I don't know, you wanted to solve climate change, well, the terminal goal is very simple, solve climate change. Then these AIs have what we call also instrumental goals. These goals are not programmed. These are just goals that you do as a means to get to your terminal goal. So, for instance, if I wanted to fabricate 100 cars, I would maybe, as an instrumental goal, start a company that is useful, that can earn money, maybe start with one car, and then I would have 100 cars after the company was successful. But my goal maybe was not to have a company in the first place, but just to have the cars. So then let's go to the proposition number 1. It is possible to build an AI system that has a strategic advantage over all other forms of intelligence. Logically, let's say, tricky or smart in that they always use possible or may. So it's very hard to say that they are wrong. But we see, at least I see, that it is very possible to build an AI system that has advantage over all other forms of intelligence. Then, if an AI system that has a decisive strategic advantage, it is plausible, it is logical that then we may not be able to control it. Why? Because we are simply less intelligent. We cannot outwit the intelligence that is smarter than us. So then, as a conclusion from these two propositions, we have that it is possible to build an AI system that we're not able to control. That doesn't have to be bad. We just say we're not able to control it. So then we get to the proposition number 3. And it says that the intelligent capacities of an AI system are logically independent from any goals the system might have. This is very related to the terminal goals, but mainly it's related to instrumental goals. So You may program an AI to, let's say, be very smart, but it's very hard to say that it will also be good. Like morals and intelligence are not necessarily unrelated. A good example, we will see a good example of this after that. This relies on the orthogonality thesis, in case you want to review it later. And then let's just jump to proposition number 4, which says that AI systems are likely to converge upon certain instrumental sub-goals or goals that are inimical to human interests. And this is supported by the instrumental convergence thesis. So as a final conclusion, it is possible to build AI systems that pose an existential threat to humanity. This is very relevant to say. This last conclusion is very relevant to say, because when we talk about artificial intelligence, we sit in Matrix, we sit in Terminator, and whoever dares to say that this can happen, sometimes it's just labeled as a person that has seen too many movies. So it's very relevant to say that logically we can infer that conclusion. So it is possible. Then it doesn't mean that we will do it. It doesn't mean that it can happen. I will make some arguments about that later, but at least we know that it is possible. Let's just see then, maybe like this. Okay, here I wanted to say instrumental convergence. But so let's review this last concept, proposing proposition number 4, instrumental convergence. Instrumental convergence is to say that any sort of AI that wants to accomplish a task, wants to accomplish a terminal goal to the fullest, to the maximum efficiency, without any other regulations of it, will logically want to also have other instrumental goals, okay? It's very reasonable to say that if an AI wants to, for instance, solve climate change, that AI should also prevent its self-destruction or its destruction, okay? If you really want to solve climate change, one way of doing it is doing it. If you stop existing, you cannot do it. So self-preservation is an example of this instrumental convergence. Another example is just its optimization of its abilities. Okay, I cannot do it, but what if I'm smarter? What if a different me, a better me, could do it? I'm not strong, but what if I train in the gym? Then I may be able to do that, lift that weight, run that marathon, crack that code, pass that test, right? So why not? Why not optimize its own abilities? And this is a convergence. It's very plausible to think that many different types of AIs with many different types of objectives will always have a combination or a variety of these examples of instrumental goals. Again, let's differentiate between terminal goals and instrumental goals. So let's go, I think I will jump. These two names here at the bottom are examples of what I said before. And maybe in case of time, let's just go with the paperclip maximizing, because it just tackles instrumental convergence very well. The paperclip maximizing is very simple. It's a thought experiment proposed by Nick Bostrom that says we are programming an AI to make as many paperclips as it can, as many as it can, like millions, trillions, infinite. Use all of the universe if you can. So it will do just that. And it's not an AI that is bad. It's not an AI that is unwise. It's just an AI that does that, okay? So in the purpose of doing that, it just maybe may start a company, may start two companies, may tend to monopoly, may start buying a continent. We're thinking that it's an AI that gets smarter and smarter and smarter and more powerful. So with just doing something as useless as that, you could have the universe being converted, all of its atoms converted into paper clips. And this is not compatible with humanity, because any world where humanity is happy and alive and doing its own thing, it means that it's a universe where there can be more paper clips, essentially. So just to proceed, then okay, we have this risk. We have an AI that left to its own, it can become very powerful, it can become super intelligent, it can really pose a threat to humanity. So then we need to look at solutions, and for that there are fields that are emerging. Some of them are very old, like just plain saying AI safety, something that's been talked about for a long time. Even the first people writing books, like I know you could say that Terminator is an AI safety sort of piece of art. But now we also have AI alignment, which more specifically talks about making sure that the AI aligns with goals that are good for humanity, that are interesting for humanity. Values and interests that are, decided by humans. So then we get to the second chapter of this. We have talked about the first risk. We have talked about the singularity, an AI becoming super intelligent, the paperclip maximizer. I could also add maybe, just for the sake of it, I maybe should check the time because I really want to say a lot of things. But there's another funny example, which is the ocean acidification, which is that you could have an AI that has the very nice objective. This would be a wise AI, let's say. The very nice objective of reducing the acidification of the oceans. How could it do that? Well, the AI decides it cannot kill humanity. It's also another objective it has. So how would it do it? A good way would be to maybe come up with a chemical that catalyzes, or I don't know how to say it, I'm not a chemist, but that makes a reaction that essentially reduces acidification on the ocean. So it accomplishes that goal. Great. And then it stops because that's the goal. It's very simple. It doesn't have to do it infinitely. But what's the problem? That compound has taken like 50% of the oxygen on Earth. So what happens then is that human cannot live on Earth without wearing some oxygen sort of masks. And why that happens? Again, this happens because being very intelligent doesn't necessarily mean being very good or being very wise. The AIs will always do what their terminal goals are. We cannot expect them to just have anything different than what we program them for, unless they give it to themselves, which is the other issue. I hope this is not very confusing. This is if you want to make any questions during the presentation, this is totally fine. But but if there are no questions, we can just very quickly go to the second part of the presentation, and it's that are corporations a super intelligence? And again, I refer not only to companies, I refer to other sort of entities that have more than one human. So then, are they intelligent? Yes, we see that they can very well solve a very varied amount of tasks. Like for instance, you can have an AI that could have the task of selling a lot of tennis rackets, could be Decathlon, and they are doing it very well. Are they generally intelligent? Yes, they are, because Decathlon is not only selling tennis rackets, but it's also advertising, it's also opening shops, it's also paying workers. It is participating in a much more complex system that requires really to adapt to new things all the time. So are they a beyond human intelligence? Well, I think in most cases they are. Of course, we all know, or people that have worked in companies know that sometimes the timings are very slow. And the bigger the company, the more time it takes to push something forward. But that does not necessarily mean that they are beyond human in many aspects, in many tasks. We can think, for instance, of a marketing campaign. So in a marketing campaign, you have people that work in advertisement. You have psychologists. You have money people, like finance. You have accounting. You have higher degrees. You have a lot of people working together to come with a nice idea that us as a customer, we cannot really compare. We cannot really understand. A good example, just very simple example that is well known is the good, the bad, and the ugly marketing strategy, where if you have two products initially, the good and the bad, the good is the expensive one. Let's say it costs 50 euros and is it's a very good keyboard that costs 50 euros. And then you have the bad, and bad meaning the company doesn't really want to sell that, but it has it. That it is a keyboard that costs 20 euros. And it has some features, like let's say, make keyboard is another example. Let's say a memory card. A memory card that has 5 gigabytes and it costs 20 euros. And you have then a memory card that has 50 gigabytes and has 50 euros and costs 50 euros. Then if most people are just saying, no, actually I'm fine with 5 gigabytes. I will just pay 20 euros, that's okay. But the good and the bad and the ugly strategy is that you have a third option, which is the ugly. That then you make, for instance, a 40 euros card that only has 10 gigabytes. So you have three options: the 5 gigabytes, 20 euros, the 10 gigabytes, 40 euros, and only for 10 euros more, You have the 50 gigabytes, 50 euros card. So then you shift your attention. Okay, oh well, only for 10 euros more, I have 40 more gigabytes. And it's like, I don't need them, but man, you know, actually, I may need them, right? I may like that. So we are seeing that us as humans, as a personal individual, unless we know this particular strategy, we are really overpowered. We're really dealing with a beyond human intelligence that is dealing with us, right? So I would argue that, yeah, in many cases, companies are beyond intelligence. So then we have, just to quickly prove a point that I will make following, is that are corporations then a misaligned superintelligence? Well, they are. We see, for instance, in the food industry that how we are seeing a tendency to monopoly that gives them a lot of power that can undermine democracy, and just like AI, it can really change our perspective and our power to decide will we come in the future. Just I'm gonna skip this just very quickly, because then we come to the funniest part of it all, which is what happens when we have super intelligences that are using AIs for this single rule, which is called profit. So AI systems are able to make decisions based on market trends and consumer behaviors, and companies may be able to manipulate markets in their favor, further exacerbating the problem of market control. And this personally makes me very angry. No, sorry, I was acting, I don't know how to act. I was just proving a point, which is manipulation, okay? Anger is very well known in social media. Anger is something that is happening a lot. We see that how polarization is happening in social media. And it's because anger is very triggering. It's much more triggering than happiness. Anger is a product of the optimization of superintelligences in the social networks. Sorry, again, I apologize if this is a bit complicated, but anger comes as a product of humans interacting with each other and algorithms deciding that this is the best, this is the most optimal strategy for human attention, okay? So this is a very, very simple example. Just me being angry and seeing how all of you actually were looking at me, right? I capture your attention by doing that stupid thing. So just to go and further prove the point of how AIs can really come with not aligned interests along companies, I will just do another example, which is a bit more complicated. Let me see if I can. So this sort of app came a couple of days ago. It's based on AutoGPT. AutoGPT is another thing that came also a couple of days ago, which is GPT-4 interacting with itself, triggering itself to accomplish a task, okay? And so I'm going to give it a task. I'm going to give it a name. I will call it Happy Convincer. Let's see if it works. And then I will ask it to come up with a thought experiment to convince an audience that they can be manipulated in general or by an AI. The problem with this is that it takes a bit of time, but hopefully, so now it's thinking. Yeah. So now it added some tasks. I didn't tell it to do anything. It's just saying, okay, we have this objective. What tasks can we follow? So let's say these tasks are sort of instrumental goals. Once we fill these tasks, we will be nearer to our end goal, our terminal goal. And then, so here it completed task 1. We will not, if you have time, maybe you can read through all of it. I will not do it. But later we will review a little bit what it's saying. Just to see what the title of task 2 is. So it's finished, right? It's finished. So let's see what the output of the task 3. So provide an example, a thought experiment of a real-life instance where individuals or groups have been manipulated by AI, such as the Cambridge Analytica. For those that don't know, this is an example of where AI was used to influence on elections. It was used to influence on the Brexit, and it was used to influence also in the US elections. So just, I don't know what to prioritize because this is really a lot of text. But let's go with this one. Imagine where you're receiving a phone call with a person claiming to be your bank representative. They'll tell you there's suspicious activity in your account and you need to verify your personal details. The caller seems professional and knowledgeable. Of course, the AI knows that this is a necessary part of it all. So you comply with the request. However, you don't realize that the caller is actually an AI-powered voice assistant designed to mimic a human voice and manipulating you into revealing sensitive information. Another example of this is a task given to an AI that was about, what was it? I don't fully remember the example, but you can look it on the internet. It was an AI designed to escape, I think. It's like really become sentient in a way. And I think part of the process involved solving a CAPTCHA. So these sort of codes are very annoying to do. So this AI couldn't do it. They still work, luckily. But it paid a person to do it. You may know this example. Okay. It paid a person to do it on Fiverr. And actually the person was smart enough to...
He was trying to convince the person to do it for him.
Was funny enough the person to say, but are you an AI or what, that you cannot do it? And the AI said, it thought I shouldn't reveal my intentions. So it said, no, I'm just a blind person. I cannot solve the CAPTCHA. So what happened is that, yeah, we can definitely be manipulated, as it has been shown just with these many examples, but with social media as a whole. So just to proceed with the presentation. Wait. Yeah, so we're here. And manipulation obviously is not something that we can ban. It will happen. I sort of tried to do it here. It didn't work that much, but manipulation is just a matter of when you talk with someone, there can be some hidden intentions. So there's always a layer of manipulation that will be there. The problem is when we're talking about monopolized manipulation, and I consider this a threat. I consider this a threat for humanity, and I will talk about it later. But I consider it a threat in that it's very hard to fight. It's very hard to fight as an individual people, okay? And so we see then that we have corporations, being companies, being the Chinese Communist Party, as many different sort of groups that can just have this sort of power that can now have access to AI. So we see then that generative AI, besides being very good at manipulating people, being very good at impersonating, very good at extracting knowledge from data, it also, as this report suggests of April 18th, it's also very good at concentrating big tech's power. So I will not go into details of how it does it, but I can provide the link to this report. And then what happens when we have corporations and profit maximization? I chose the word profit. I could have chosen the word power, but I think profit is more visual to where we live. We live here in Spain or in the West. I don't know where you guys live, but at least for me, it was more close. Then if profit is the motive driving AI development in corporations, it's also the motive driving AI development. Why? Because the majority of AI development that has repercussions, that has business repercussions, but also that is being deployed in a large scale with big models, with a lot of data, it's tech-led AI. So we're seeing, for instance, there's a fact that is that on 2022, last year, from 35, I think it was, impactful models, 32 were made by companies. 32 models out of 35. The other 3 were done by research, public research entities. So we really are building AIs that are profit-driven. This is something that I would take into account. Then when profit is the major goal, and we're then looking for speed, we're looking for accumulation of resources, ethics is what is a part of what we pay. So another thing that we need to consider is that then we stop thinking about risks and the consequences. A good example, I think, is GPT-4 being released, as fantastic as it is, as good that it has been helping me develop partly this presentation. It has been used, for instance, in scams, to give an example. And it was not GPT-4, but another piece of news that I could give, and sorry if I'm being a bit of a doomsday, I'm not trying to do that, just to exemplify. There was the case of a mother of a girl that received a call, and that call had the voice of the girl. So the girl essentially called the mom and said, "Hey, I fucked up. I was something happened," and then the voice of a man appears in the background and said, "Hey, I have your daughter. Pay me 1 million euros." You know what? But it ended up being just a scam. What happened there? What happened is that through social media or through any other means, the scammers had a sample of the daughter's voice, and they could then replicate the voice and make it say whatever they wanted. It could even be that the man's voice was also AI made. Who knows? So we're dealing into products that are being commercialized without really taking risks and consequences into consideration. So we clearly have a need for a responsive approach when we come to AI development. I prepared a lot of slides talking about solutions that we can have, but really I think this is also a very good topic to discuss. So I will not go through them. I'm taking a lot of time. But yeah, my personal response to this question. So are corporations intelligent? Yes. Are they general intelligence? Yes. Are they super intelligence? In many cases, yes. Are they also misaligned super intelligence? Yes. And I would throw another question even. Are they misaligned super intelligences that are developing potentially risky AIs? Yes, they are. So now we come to the third and final chapter of the presentation, which I call the race. And if the previous chapter bashed more concretely on the business side of it, on the profit side of it, now we're going to jump in the more just crudely power and self-defense side of AI development. So now we're talking about countries. We're talking about global powers. And sorry, here I didn't summarize the text. This is something AI generated. I just didn't want to summarize by myself Prisoner's Dilemma, but I will do it just now. So the prisoner's dilemma is when two rational entities decide that fighting against each other is the more reasonable outcome. Even if cooperation would be beneficial for both, they understand that they cannot trust the other to cooperate. So it's better to be prepared. You may have heard of the phrase, if we want peace, we must be prepared for war. This is exactly it. So we have, for instance, the example of the USA saying, but we cannot stop research, right? What would China do in the meantime? China would not waste its time. Or we have also tech companies saying, hey, why is Elon Musk saying that we should pause research? It must be because they will, in the meantime, study and catch up, right? So we have this prisoner's dilemma that it's affecting everything, where we have to compete, we have to play the game just to not lose potentially. We cannot trust the other people to stop playing, so we just have to play. It's a very good example, and I think you told me that the prisoner's dilemma came with nuclear war, but this is exactly it. So we just jump into it because the other guys are doing it, and if they are not, they are stupid. So, yeah.
Prisoner's dilemma was invented by the Rand Corporation when they were studying how to prevent escalation in nuclear wars, basically. It was a thought experiment that they came up with. The whole of game theory is related to
Yeah, great. So,
nuclear
yeah.
segment, there is control. There is the smaller countries are limited in their technological development, and so.
So you mean that the control comes from technological limitations or from legislation?
I think like the NATO is trying to control other countries from. And there's also there's been a limitation on how many nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Are supposed to be made, and that should be applied to artificial intelligence as well. I think there should be strict rulings. It should be like a committee, like the NATO or a committee, but like we have against to prevent meteorites. We have the NASA working on it, trying to. This is a lot more urgent and a lot more manageable if we manage it. If we do something about it, and I don't know if there's any institutions who are regulating.
If I might interrupt you, I'm sorry. I do agree that it's really important to regulate, but I disagree that it is easier to regulate. Like you can easily regulate nuclear weapons because, correct, I'm not a nuclear physicist, but I do think that you require some components. Like you can trace if a country is buying too much of X component.
Yeah.
It's much harder to regulate AI because you just need a couple of really smart persons with a computer to develop something.
I don't say it's easy. I just say it's necessary. Very necessary.
I misunderstood that.
Okay, you know what? Very nice little discussion there. I think maybe you could trace it by looking at GPUs, at graphics cards, and if they are stored in very big facilities. I don't know. I think we should invent some sort of weapon to detect this sort of big computing going on. But as of now, it's not there. And yeah, definitely I agree that in the future we need some sort of institution, governmental, some sort of treaty, something coming in that direction. The difference is, and that's why I made one of the reasons I made the previous point, is that before it was governments, before it was democratically elected governments, and it was governments after a big war, all of these things. Now it's companies that are leading this race, so it's getting very complicated, especially as companies are becoming more and more extra-governmental entities where they are not loyal to anyone concretely, they are only loyal to themselves. And the funny thing with some big corporations is that you cannot really point at a person and say, okay, you are the company. We can look at Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and say, hey, you're to blame for whatever happens with AI. No, it's not like that. Sam Altman is answering to a group of the board of advisors, and the board of advisors is answering to the investors, and the investors are answering to the retirement pension plans that are funding them, and the researchers are answering to Sam Altman, and so we end in a loop where no one is really the company, but the company is still doing that, right? So this is also a very dangerous dynamic that we need to take into account. And a bit of a takeaway for me is the bigger the speed, the less the ethics that we will have. Okay, this is a slide that I didn't fully finish, but just to do a little bit of backtracking. This was 2017, and we had Putin saying already that the nation that leads in AI will be the ruler of the world. And of course, back then it could be like, oh yeah, 2050, right? In 2050 we will think about that. We have climate change before that, and who knows what we have before that. But the recent developments in AI, with GPT-4 already showing some sparks of artificial general intelligence, it means that we're getting into this sort of a scenario much sooner than you would think back then. And I want to exemplify this with some data in terms of computing power. So here we have, let's first look at this graph. Here we have the computing power of artificial intelligence models in a unit called FLOP, which is operations per second, essentially. We see that it's essentially very, very small, the order of, I don't have to say, very, very low orders of magnitude. We're not talking about billions or billions. We're just talking about thousands. We're in the thousands orders of magnitude. And then here we start growing. We start approaching the millions. And then here we have GPT-4, if I'm not wrong. This little dot. So we see a clear, of course, this graph is a bit, it's hard to represent all of the data in a whole graph because it will just happen that the first points will just be flat, and then we have a huge spike. This is exponential growth at its finest. So then let's zoom into a more closed region where we have may have a better understanding. This is of the last years. So in the deep learning era, so the narrow AI era, where we have AIs doing a particular task and getting very good at it, and just doing that task very well, just beating everyone at chess. We see that they had, in orders of magnitude, let's say 0.001. Then we have these lines that separate the graph. Every line is an increment of 100. So for every line, the models are 100 times bigger in computing power. So with the years, we have 100, 100, 100, 100, 100. So we go from 0.0001 to this, close to this number over here that I don't want to read. 100 million, I think it is. 100 million. I think it was maybe 60 million, but I'm not sure. And so yeah, we're seeing that definitely we're following an exponential curve. Okay? We're not only following an exponential curve in terms of computing power, we're also following exponential curves in terms of investment. And I would say even worse than that, because okay, we have a bit of an exponential investment here. But what's happening? What's going on in 2023? Keep in mind that we're in April. This is April. And the amount of investment that we have on AI as of April 2023 is more than double what we had on 2022. So if we got GPT-4, which is almost an artificial general intelligence just with the investment of 2022, we can imagine what can come after if we don't do something about it, if we don't regulate this in a way or another. And just going back to this graph, and to further say that this is very exponential, the jump of deep learning to the large scale era can be attributed to many things, many theoretical advancements, many architectural advancements of the AI. But one particular thing is also the hardware. We were very good at making processing units, graphics cards, at making operations in parallel so they just go faster. And we're seeing that, well, funnily enough, transistors, processing units are also following an exponential law. So maybe that's one of the reasons why we have an exponential law here is because we have it there. Like the substrate that is carrying the computation is exponential. And this is a graph by Intel, by the way. Intel, who no less than a week ago is signing treaties with China to continue doing business there as the second biggest client that they have. So we have corporations, again, being extra-governmental and doing their own thing. We have the phrase, and I think that's why I want to really state as much as I can the importance of understanding exponential growth, is that we really don't understand it. And Albert Bartlett said, the greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand exponential growth. We saw it with COVID as well. With COVID, we had a few cases. Okay, we heard, oh, China is closing cities. Okay, they're communists, I don't know. No, what was going on is a pandemic, is a plague that it really grows in this exponential growth. And it's really hard to understand that what is 10,000 in a day, in a week it can be 1 million, right? So, okay, here I forgot to, well, maybe I can just draw it. So yeah, ideally we would have to the graph of the exponential growth of capabilities. It's very hard to draw with like this. Well, I will just leave it here. Capabilities. To the curve of capabilities, we would also have a very nice and closely aligned curve that some would argue should actually be precisely here or actually be better than the capabilities, because many AI safety researchers say that we cannot afford making a mistake at a particular point. So when we're dealing with intelligences, making a mistake is not an option. But let's say we can. Let's say we can make a little mistake and react to it. So a close alignment. Ideally, we would be in this scenario where we're very close aligning our safety concerns, our safety capabilities with the actual capabilities of an AI. The reality is that we are here. The reality is like this, so far. We see, for instance, that I do not want to give wrong numbers, but well, maybe I should research. But take it with a very big grain of salt, but it's around that. It's only like 10% of researchers at DeepMind and OpenAI are working on this little curve here. The rest are there. The rest are in the big one. What's the reason for that? Well, profit, of course. The other reason is that it's being argued that by advancing the capabilities, we will be able to essentially also affect the safety capabilities that we have. So if we have a very powerful AI, we'll make it help us control itself, right? This is how it works. So we take the genie out of the bottle and say, hey, you're free, first wish, second wish, just do whatever I say, right? So this does not work like this. If it's already free, the genie will say, listen, man, the train has gone. The train is not here anymore. So, of course, this is a field of debate of whether this is true or not. This is something Sam Altman himself is saying, the CEO of OpenAI. I personally do not really agree with that at all. It doesn't make a lot of logical sense. But yeah, it's something we can discuss later if you want. Then, just to finalize, because I'm taking forever. Okay, we're almost done. Okay, so this diapositive, this slide, we can skip it because it's the 32 significant commercially produced machine learning systems are privately made, and then 3 are produced by academia. This is a big issue. This is a big issue that our governments, our democratically elected governments, should fix soon. So we're slowly going away from the age of data to the age of AI, as Bill Gates himself announced. And why I say that? Because, okay, we still need data. AI still learn from data. But what will happen as well? What will happen is that AIs will learn from AIs themselves. We'll have AIs training AIs. We'll have, some could argue that this happened before. It's true. But the difference now is that we really have very powerful AIs training AI. So one thing is really just competing with each other in a game of chess. And the other thing is 2 AIs competing with each other to solve a task of solving climate change. The differences in these 2 tasks are completely different. So I just wanted to finish this with the quote of the Ian Hogarth from the Financial Times. This article here, I would really recommend everyone to go through it. I think it was sent in the group, the discussion group. And it's that I believe that now is the time. The leader of a major lab who plays a statesman role and guides us publicly to a safer path will be a much more respected world figure than the one who takes us to the brink. And it's easy to have more respect when we're on the brink, you will have no one to respect you, because really an existential threat is on the brink in that case. So now I wanted to just do one final thing. We had a Twitter discussion with Jan LeCun. I don't know how to pronounce it, but essentially he was retweeting this image. Okay, and I think it's very relevant to talk about that, because from the backgrounds of anyone here, I don't think I heard anyone particularly researching AI. Not even myself, I'm doing it. So I did it maybe a little bit in my master's, but I'm not doing it. So according to this graph, and according to Jan LeCun, which is one of the very important researchers in the field of AI, which is also the team lead of the Meta AI team, Meta being the Facebook, the old Facebook, is that we cannot talk about it, or that at least we shouldn't feel to talk about it, okay? And I think this is very relevant because AI will affect everything. I said this is a talk about existential threats, but this is really a talk about psychology, this is really a talk about neuroscience, but this is also a talk about being a waiter, being someone that cares about climate change. This is a talk about being a physicist, I don't know. Because intelligence will affect everything. So we really need to talk about it, maybe make questions, maybe be humble, of course, but we really need to talk about it. And I don't care personally, sorry for throwing so many opinions, but personally I don't care what some researcher with questionable maybe interests that is working for a multinational working on this has to say about us being qualified or not to talk about AI. And really, I think this is a good start to talk it out precisely. So, yeah, this is the presentation.
So, first question, when we all die, it seems that it's inevitable, we can perhaps select date and let's throw a deliberation or so. What I want to talk about is argue that singularity has already long come. What is singularity? Singularity is a state when our technological advancement will affect irreversibly us and the planet. We have done this as soon as we have created first rain and started polluting our atmosphere. So, singularity doesn't exist. It's just some imaginary happy future when good or bad AI will come and solve finally all problems. So we either create a good God or bad God, and everything will die or live in eternal paradise. Singularity by itself, the process is already happening. We are on the brink. We cannot go back. We are lacking resources. We are lacking everything. We pollute atmosphere. We need to develop the technology to clean it. We are killing our oceans. We have destroyed by now more than half of biological multitude, like half of the species that existed at the point of start of technological advancement are already dead. So singularity is a process that we are probably at second half of. And this leads to me the second point of threat of technology. Technology is already killing us and our planet, and stopping developing technology is simply not possible. So race is inevitable by the sheer state we find ourselves currently. But the race is actually a good part. We've seen this with nuclear weapons. As soon as many actors have acquired such power, we suddenly stopped having wars because we all have the same power, know the outcome, and no one across the big corporation, big governments, big greedy people want to die. So the availability of technology is deterrent to the bad outcome by itself, from my perspective.
How are you defining singularity?
Yeah.
I'm just taking it out from Wikipedia. So singularity is a hypothetical future where technology growth is out of control and irreversible.
Because I would define it differently. My understanding of the singularity is when we invent machines that can essentially improve themselves. And then we get exponential growth.
This is very specific feedback loop. If we can
the thing is that singularity has many ways of understanding it, but singularity in AI is about what he mentioned, that is an intelligence out of our control that can improve itself. And the reason why this is a singularity is because computers are so much faster than humans at what they can do. For example, calculation. I don't know, the best mathematician can do 100 calculations per second, the best computer can do 1 trillion.
Yeah.
So
but
whenever...
It is happening because, just 2 days ago, NVIDIA announced that they're using AI to design the next generations of chips. And that's a singularity thing, right?
But it is not just a specific case of technology going out of control. Specifically about technology.
I think that you're fixating too much on on creating changes irreversible to the planet that objectively we have done.
That's definitely happening, but that's not what singularity is about.
I think if we understand humanity as a superintelligence, it makes sense to think, like you think, that we're already a superintelligence improving itself through improving AI.
Yeah.
So maybe I would agree then with you. But
for me, one of the really interesting things that have come out of a lot of this recent debate is the concept of alignment. So alignment is basically making artificial intelligence so that what it does aligns with what humanity generally wants. But it's a concept that can be applied much more broadly. So many people now are talking about the fact that corporations are almost intelligent entities that are not aligned with what humanity in general wants. There are some very basic kind of rules about how corporations work that make that happen. So the profit motive and the fact that, you know, within the kind of DNA of corporations, the legal DNA, there is the making of profits. That doesn't align with humanity. So I think from an intellectual point of view, a really powerful concept that's coming out of this debate about AI is actually this alignment problem, and it comes before AI, because the alignment problem is that we have corporations that are not aligned with what humanity wants that are making these AI. So I think it's, you know, that's the problem that we really need to solve, because if we solve that, then they would make AI that is aligned with humanity.
Even in the human era, there should be like a mission statement for a company. That company, actually, if you ask CEO of Volkswagen, would you rather have your children